It all started in secondary school. I must have been about 13 or 14 years old, and my mum was still making packed lunches for us to go to school with. She would bulk make a big tub of pasta on a Sunday night that she would give to us in little portions to take to school for lunch. And I would sit in the hallway for lunchtime outside my head of house's office because that's where I thought would be safest. I was very wrong. The boys in my year group would spot me down the hallway and come racing down, kick the pasta out of my hand and say something to the effect of, "What are you eating that for, you anorexic freak?" And I don't really know why my state of mind was to be called anorexic and then sort of go, yeah, maybe I am, but that's kind of how my mind worked when I was a teenager. So I don't know, I would just leave the house with a full packed lunch and come back with a full packed lunch. And I remember feeling guilty because my mum, bless her heart, was just trying to save money or do something nice for us by just making us these lunches. But I would get home and I'd feel so bad that anything that I hadn't eaten, I would just binge. I would just eat it all, and then immediately afterwards, I would just throw it back up in the bathroom and then come downstairs for dinner and have about half of it and then leave the rest. My boyfriend at the time found it very, very difficult to be with me, and I can't say that I really blame him. He used to go to the corner shop down the road and buy me lunch, and it would usually be something stupid like a multi-pack of cheese and onion pasties because he knew that I liked cheese and onion pasties. Or he would get me a mini tub of Pringles because he thought that that wasn't too much. I wouldn't get overwhelmed by that. But I remember being overwhelmed by the fact that someone was going to try and take care of me. And it wasn't necessarily that I thought that he was taking care of me, it was that he was trying to feed me. And suddenly my entire world shifted focus. I started to lose a lot of weight, maybe 6 to 8 months into the process, because I was fiercely trying to hide it from my parents and my boyfriend at the time. But it was getting more and more noticeable, which is when everything started to peak. Usually I weigh somewhere between 7 and 8 stone, but I choose not to weigh myself anymore because of the problems that I had when I was a teenager. I remember walking into the bathroom and stepping on the scales and reading that I was 5 stone. And at that point is when I started to panic. But it wasn't the point where I started to change, because that point came later in the day. After I'd had my initial breakdown, I went round to my boyfriend's house and I collapsed into his arms crying. And we went into his conservatory and started to watch a movie. And I remember that it was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. And it was summertime and it was really hot in the conservatory. So I took my jumper off. And he said something to me that has stuck with me for all of my adult life. He said, "Put that jumper back on. You look like a Holocaust victim." And obviously that broke my heart. So off I go running into the night. And I go home and I sit with my mum in the living room. And I decide to tell her everything. And then she cried, I cried, I shouted, she shouted back at me. And eventually she just said, "Don't worry, I'll be there for you every step of the way. Even if it's as little as one more bite of dinner every day." So that's what we did. I broke up with my boyfriend at the time. Probably a good decision. I made some new friends. And for about a year and a half, I wore really baggy jumpers and tried to take care of myself. About a year or so later, I was weighing around the amount that I should be. Still underweight, but around the amount that I should be. And I'll always leave something on my plate. But it doesn't mean the same thing that it used to.